Welcome to Down the Garden Path. I'm your host, Joanne Shaw, landscape designer and plant lover. I enjoy discussing down-to-earth tips and advice to help you seasonally manage your garden and landscape. And I also aim to bring you interesting and relevant topics to educate you all about the landscaping and horticultural industry. Welcome to Down the Garden Path podcast. Thank you again for joining me here. I am really excited and looking forward to chatting with our new guest. It is Bevin Cohen. He is an award-winning author, herbalist, owner of Small House Farm, and host of the popular Seeds and Weeds podcast. He offers workshops and lectures across the country on the benefits of living closer to the land through seeds, herbs, and local grown food. Bevin is a food and garden writer whose work has appeared in numerous publications, including Mother Earth News, Modern Farmer Magazine, and Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company catalog. He's the author or editor of more than 10 books, including Saving Our Seeds and The Artisanal Herbalist. And we're also going to talk about his new book, Herbs in Every Season. Welcome to the show, Bevin.
Joanne, thank you so much for having me here today.
I'm really excited. What would you like to talk about first? The new book is coming out in a few weeks.
Yep, the new book is it's going to arrive March 25th. So whenever your listeners are tuning in, March 25th is when it drops. We're doing pre-orders right now in advance of that. But the book is going to see the world soon. And I'm so excited. This has been a book. It's been many years in the making. There has been a lot of time and effort and experimentation with recipes and all sorts of stuff and photographers. And you know how it goes for a project like this, of this scale. It was quite a thing. So I'm so excited to finally be on this side, getting it out there and sharing it with the world. I think folks are going to love it. I'm really excited. Very proud of this work for sure.
Excellent. And what was your initial spark that you felt like why did you want to write it?
Well, I've written a number of books. I think in the bio, I think you said 10 there, and that's probably true. I would make this maybe my 11th. I do a lot of writing about food, gardening, history, and culture, and sort of the intersection of those types of things. And Timber Press had approached me about writing this book. They just kind of like my take, I suppose, on the relationship that people have with plants. And so they'd asked me to work on a book about herbs. And I thought, well, it'd be really nice to look at this from a seasonal perspective, to really explore the way that not only do plants change throughout the seasons, but also as people and as gardeners, we change throughout the seasons of the year, the seasons of our life, whatever it might be. So I really wanted to kind of dig into that. And then they kind of gave me free rein to do essentially whatever I wanted. So this book is, it's loaded. Yeah, I know. It's loaded with information here. We talk about, of course, some history and folklore of the different plants. I think for each season, we cover 12 different herbs, and then some cultivated, some wild, of course. And we talk about some folklore and history. We talk about uses, medicinal uses in the apothecary, utilizing them in the kitchen, their culinary applications. We talk about growing and gathering and processing and harvesting, all sorts of different stuff. And then, like I mentioned, the recipes. Looking back on the finished product, I'm shocked at how many recipes we were able to work into this book.
Wow.
It's amazing. I mean, for every herb, there is multiple ways to utilize it, both, again, medicinally or just for culinary applications. I wanted to explore herbs as more of not just an activity that we do in the garden, but a lifestyle, right? So we really approached the day-to-day interactions that we have with these particular plants and all of the wonderful things that they could bring to our kitchen table and to the health of our family and communities.
Excellent. That's great. Because I think a lot of people including me, grow herbs and, use it a little bit in cooking, right? A little bit. And then they either don't succeed and they dry and we forget to water them or something like that, or chives, something that it just grows so easily you can't but we never really do much with them, so I think the idea to grow something, to know that you can then use it to make a lotion or a balm or something like that, I think is very exciting.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and I think that you're right. We may try to use herbs in the kitchen, and then maybe it doesn't go quite as we expected, but have no fear, right? Because there's a multitude of other ways we can still use that same plant. So if one path isn't the right path for us, there's other paths that we can choose. And herbs are relatively, pretty forgiving out in the
Yeah.
garden.
Hmm.
I always, for new gardeners, I always recommend we should start with some herbs because it seems to be something most people can have success with. If you're growing in containers, if you have a small space, you
Yes.
can do a lot of herbs, right? So it's a really nice way to help people try growing some new plants and then
Hmm.
just seeing the ways that we can use them maybe through from a different point of view, through a different lens. That seasonal application is really nice when we can spend the 4 seasons with a plant and really watch it go, from seed to foliage to fruit to seed again. There's something special about that. And I think that it even helps us as gardeners or as potential herbalists or, whatever it
Hmm.
might be, chefs, see different ways that we can make use of these plants when we get to experience the plant through its entire life cycle.
Yes. And I like what you said about containers because I think that is really important. I think many new gardeners are afraid to like put it in the ground, like and that commitment that goes with that. So if they can start in a container, it's and also with kids, gardening with kids, right? I think something where they could see the flowers but smell it and taste it. I think that's a great way to introduce a new generation to growing.
Absolutely. I think growing in containers sometimes makes it more accessible. For us, now it's been many, many years that we've been here at Small House Farm, but in the early days, even putting a perennial herb into the garden, there's that moment of hesitation because you're like, well, is this really the right place for this plant? And am I
Yes.
committed to this now? But if you do it in a container, well, then you can move it and change your mind and do whatever you want with it. And it
Yes.
does make it easier for kids to get their hands on. And that's the goal, right? We want to get the next generation turned on to the wonders of the plant world, right? So
Yeah.
getting them out there, smelling the plants, touching them, looking at the beautiful flowers, watching all the little pollinators buzzing around, and finding that joy in gardening, that's one of
Yeah.
the coolest things that we can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are some herbs that are a little bit, let's say, invasive or a little bit of a bully. So often we recommend that, things like mint or oregano, do stay in the pot, right?
If you can get them to, yeah, absolutely. No, you're right. So for us here at Small House, we're really lucky because we have a lot of space to work with. So we don't have to worry quite so much about that. I've actually planted mint in places that I would prefer to have mint instead of grass, let's say. But not everybody has that luxury or wants to have to deal with that. So yeah, using these containers as a way to, well, contain these plants works really well for things like you mentioned, like mint and oregano. My spearmint gets going in the spring. It's just like I cannot believe because it'll spread through underground runners, and sometimes it'll pop up, and it is so far away from the original plant when it comes back. It's astounding. It's amazing to see. But if that's not what you want to have happening, I could see how it could get frustrating, right?
Yes, yeah, yeah, I can definitely. Yeah, as a landscape designer, I'm often, at homes where we need to kind of reestablish a new garden and the previous homeowner or that homeowner, let something loose.
Yeah.
And the lawn, like the men that love their lawns, they apparently don't like it when there's mint in it.
No, or dandelion sometimes, or a lot of those
Yeah,
plants that some of us would find to be welcome in the gardens and yards, other folks don't. So I think that's kind of
right.
the beauty of gardening is that there's kind of something for everybody. There's all sorts of different people in the world. They all enjoy different things, and there's a garden for everybody, right? There's a different way that we can style or choose to grow plants that's going to suit everybody's needs, so everybody can find that kind of joy.
Now, as far as the book goes, what because we all know how to not we don't all know how to cook with herbs, but it is, but I wonder what other recipes or what other ways are your favorite, like, when I mentioned like the balms and the lotions or the tinctures, like do you have something that's like maybe easier or more worth the effort for lack,
Oh, sure. So we help people in the book make all sorts of different recipes. And I
Okay.
really tried to, I did all the classics, like you mentioned, the tinctures and the oils and lotions and that sort of thing. And then I really tried to push my own expertise and push the boundaries to try some new types of things. But for folks that are just getting into using herbs, something as simple as an infused oil, drying the herbs, infusing it in oil. We can make a massage oil out of it. We can make a lotion or a salve. And I walk you through how to do all those things in the book, of course, so we can so we can make those uses of the herbs. But they're actually quite simple to do. Just like with anything new, if you haven't done it before, it can seem daunting, or you're not
Hmm.
sure of the steps. So we really make it as simple as possible for folks that are brand new to the whole concept, so they can feel comfortable, they can feel confident. I really, throughout the book, the message I'm trying to get across here, one of the messages is to learn to be confident through making mistakes. I mean, the
Hmm.
gardening, it's like you're going to make
Yeah.
mistakes, and that's life, right? And that's
Hmm.
how we learn stuff. So don't be afraid to just try it. If it doesn't work out, that's cool.
Hmm.
Learn something, try again. It's going to be nice. And then once you master one of these recipes, which I'm sure you'll do in no time, then you can kind of make it your own and branch out and expand and try new things. And that's really the fun of it at the end, right?
Absolutely, because we have Mother Nature too, right? So what may grow and do really well this year may not do well on next year, right? Like so sometimes all about gardening, that's the biggest challenge is that it's a little bit out of our control, right?
Yes, it is. You never know what's going to happen out there. Something that really just is gangbusters this year might just be a dud next year. You don't know.
Hmm.
So you got to learn how to be flexible. That's kind of one of the lessons that we learn out in the garden is to be patient and to be flexible.
Yeah.
So in the book, for each of the seasons, we talk about cultivated herbs, but we also take time to talk about wild plants. And wild plants are really nice to get to know. Many of them are medicinal. Many of them are edible culinary plants. And if we could take the time to to know some of those crops, then we'll see that even if the garden is a dud, Mother Nature is still providing us with all sorts of wonderful
Oh,
plants that we can
okay.
make use of. So even if we were to think about maybe if you are growing like linden trees, or I know that ginkgo is a popular landscaping
Yes.
tree, right? Well,
Hmm.
there's a multitude of uses for this plant, right? So if we can look at these plants just through a different point of view. We talk about things that are already in your house. We're talking about aloe, we're talking about cinnamon, green tea, right?
Oh,
So these are things you don't even necessarily have to be a gardener to enjoy these plants and find a new way to bring herbs into your life.
okay. Now, so I have a ginkgo tree. It's my city tree. One of my city trees. I have three because I'm on a corner. But so what can we do with a ginkgo tree? Like, is it the leaves?
Yep, the leaves is the part of the plant that we're going to want. So what's cool about ginkgo, right? When all the leaves turn yellow and they just practically all
Hmm.
just fall off at one time, right? It's right at
Hmm.
that stage. In particular, when the leaves are yellowing, that's when they're the most potent. The most common use for gathering ginkgo is we can make the leaves into a tea, which is absolutely fantastic for cognitive function. So helping improve the memory, helping you clear the mind. A little bit of ginkgo tea goes a long way. Now, if you got a ginkgo tree on your property, you're producing way more leaves than you need,
Yeah.
most certainly. But just a handful of those leaves and bring them in and try brewing them into a tea. And it's just those simple ways. It doesn't take a lot of work or time to really learn how to incorporate these plants into our day-to-day life.
Okay. Now, do you need to dry them, or would you use them fresh? Like
You
as
can use them fresh as soon as they fall. You can catch them in the air and bring them inside. But if you want to, you can then dry some down, and then you can have them to use in the off season. We'll say, during the winter and into the spring, before the leaves are available to harvest again, you'll have a supply of them, right?
Oh,
So drying down the herbs is in one of the things we did in the book was for each season, we also talked about particular activities that kind of relate to the season. So in the
okay.
spring, right now, we're
Hmm.
talking about garden planning, right?
Yes.
So getting your garden ready. And then later in the book, when we're harvesting herbs, we talk about how to properly dry them and process them for storage as well. So we're really trying to follow you through the year. All the things that you may need to know or do, we're right there for you. We're helping you guide you through all of those steps.
Oh, wonderful. That is really good. And that's the way I think about things too. And my co-host, previous co-host, and I wrote a book as well about helping people in the garden, and we followed that same principle of what you do now or don't do in spring, summer, and fall kind of thing. So yes, that speaks to me for sure.
Well, it's a good way to organize it. If you
Yeah.
take any task and you just break it down into smaller pieces, it's easier to deal with. So if we could take a year's worth of gardening and break it down by the seasons, well, then it makes it, we're here now. We're focused on the moment. We're not
Yes.
thinking about later. We're doing what needs to be done now, so we're prepared for later.
Hmm. And I often say is that there's a lot of books that tell you what to do, but not necessarily when to do it.
Right.
Right. So you could
Absolutely
pick
right.
up, you could pick up a book in, July and it's got all these things, but you need to do those things in April. And so now by the time the next April comes around, you've forgotten where that you put that book. So to have a book that can, meet you where you are, I think is invaluable.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, I love that idea of you could just pick this book up and if it's summer or fall or whatever it is, flip it open to that season and get started.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just flipped up to arnica. So that is an herb. So is that something we can grow? So that is one, I know what it is from the health food store, but I didn't know that we could grow it in our gardens.
Well, so this is an interesting thing. So we try to talk about plants that most folks could grow in most places,
Okay.
but we weren't able to always do that. So some of the plants that I wanted to discuss are plants that you may have to source from somewhere or they might already exist in your home, like
Okay.
cinnamon. I'm not growing cinnamon by any means,
Right.
as much as I would like to. So for me, arnica is one of those plants that falls into that category. I'm in
Okay.
central Michigan. I can't grow arnica. Arnica grows at very high elevations.
Mm,
In order to get it to flower, I mean, I just can't pull it off. I've tried,
right.
can't do it. Right.
Can't do it. Okay.
So we're going to work with other growers to source those flowers. But I wanted to talk about arnica because it's a very useful plant. Number one, beautiful. So we got some really nice photos of it too. So that was really nice. But it's a plant that folks are familiar with, right?
Yes.
It's a pretty popular medicinal herb. So I wanted people to see, well, this is how it grows and this is where it comes from and this is how you can work with it. And there are some purveyors of herbs. You can get some really high quality arnica that you can purchase from herb farmers, and that's what we do here because that's what we need to do. In June, I'm actually headed to. I'm a speaker at an event called the Modern Homesteading Conference, and it's in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And it
Ooh.
happens to be, yeah, right. I'm very excited. It's going to be my second year there. It's a very fun event, and it's with the elevation here. It's perfect for arnica. And when I'm going to be
Oh.
there in June, there's a species of arnica that should be flowering up in the mountain there. So when I'm not at work at the conference, I'm planning on going hiking and see if I can track some of it down because it just sounds like a fun adventure, really.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Have you connected with a grower that might be growing it? Like, do you think in Idaho or in those regions they do grow it?
I've talked to a couple foragers that are familiar with
Mm,
where it grows and that they harvest it from the wild. So I'm going to be kind of tagging along with some of those guys in
mm-hmm.
hopes of being able to. It's all about just being there at the right time because, we could say there's this window of flowering time, but depending on the weather, I'm going to be getting there right as it should be starting. So if
Okay.
everything is just right on track, I'll be good. If not, it might be a little early, but even be able to track down the plants and find them, that'll be a fun thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I'm sure
Absolutely.
that there's somebody there growing it, but I really wanted to find it in its natural habitat.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I love the idea of making your own arnica lotion or arnica topical spray. So I was just reading about that. So yeah, to use sunflower oil, beeswax. So you really do cover the detail, and it really just looks like it's a recipe, like you said, right? Like it's stuff that you would have in the kitchen. Like it's nothing, um, you know, nothing complicated.
I try to keep it really as simple as possible, especially with the ingredients. If we're going to talk about the herbal ingredients in any of the recipes, I kept it to herbs in the book. So you're not going to find recipes that include herbs that are not really mentioned in the book because I
Okay.
wanted to make it as
Yeah.
useful as possible. There's a few outside things that we're going to bring in, like a couple recipes might call for some white wine or a lemon or a cucumber or whatever it might be. And we're not doing those things in the book, but I really tried to keep it as simple as possible just to make it as accessible as I could. So everyone that finds a recipe of interest to them has an opportunity to try to make it. Even the sunflower oil that you mentioned, sunflower is one of the herbs in the book. And I even talk about pressing the oil from the seeds because that's something that we do here on the farm.
Oh,
So if people were industrious and interested, they could produce their own sunflower oil if they wanted to. And so we kind of dig into that a little bit also.
you probably don't have the battle with the squirrels as bad as we do here.
Well, that's not completely accurate. We have some
Okay.
squirrel issues for sure. You got to really be ahead of the game with the squirrels, right? What
Hmm.
I have found works best for some of our sunflower adventures is sometimes I'll start my sunflowers indoors and I'll put them out as started plants. And that sometimes will help with the squirrels because they're more interested in getting to those seeds when they sprout. So if I can skip that step, that helps.
Okay.
And sometimes I've actually built like little protective chicken wire things that'll go over plants or areas in the garden or whatever it might be to help keep the squirrels out. It's an endless
Oh,
battle. It's an endless battle to work on these pests. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
for sure. So I'm always open to hear tips and tricks on how that. So if any of your listeners know some tips and tricks on how to stop the squirrels, they should feel welcome to reach out to me anytime and share their knowledge and experience with me. I would appreciate it.
Okay. Well, it's good to know that Michigan, has the same challenges as we do with the squirrels. Yeah, it's challenging, and I think especially because of the height, right? There's some. I know I've started to use to keep them out from digging in my pots, plastic forks upside down, like with the
Right.
forks. There's a use for plastic forks, right?
There you go. There you go.
But they kind of stop digging in the pots. But, when you're dealing with something so tall, yeah, it can be challenging.
Well, for now, if we're going to talk about the sunflowers when they're tall plants with the seeds up top, because I was thinking about with the young plants or planting the seeds and having critters
Yes.
dig them up. But if we're going to get to that, we actually use like oh, what's it called? The little bags, like a organza bag.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
some larger organza bags that we use to cover the heads of the flowers to protect them because we need those seeds obviously for food. We're going to press oil
Yeah.
from them. We have a little seed store, so we sell seeds on our website. So we have a multitude of reasons why we want to keep these seeds. So these big
Mm-hmm.
organza bags work really nice
Mm-hmm.
to protect the flowers for sure.
Yeah. And it's great that they're reusable.
Yes.
Right? We use them.
Yes.
We have little ones that we are trying to grow figs, and we have two pot. My husband loves figs, and so I bought him a fig tree, and then I bought him a second fig tree. And then he was doing some reading, and then yeah, it was like trying to, we didn't want the critters to take the figs, right? You wait so long. So we do have those like organza bags on our fig tree. So very cool idea, right?
It works great. I mean, it takes a minute to adjust to having those bags all over in the garden like that. Visually, it's not as beautiful
Yes.
necessarily as a sunflower, but you do what you got to do out there to get the goods at the end, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pulling up dill because I wondered, dill is a common one, right? That's something that most people grow. It's also, which is the butterfly? It'll come to me. There's a,
Is
is it
it
the
the swallowtail?
swallowtail? Yes. So,
Mm-hmm.
so it's a favorite plant for the swallowtail. So that's another reason to grow it in, just from your average person to grow it in your garden. Um, but they do die out quickly, I find, in my garden. Do you have tips? So I want to ask you about tips for growing dill, but also what are some of the uses that you talk about in the book?
Oh, okay. So there's a lot here. So tips
Hmm.
for growing dill. I find that for us, dill doesn't seem to keep it going in the summer. You know what I mean? It's a
Yes.
short-lived plant.
Okay.
So we could do a couple of things here. One thing that I'll recommend sometimes is actually growing my dill in a partial sun to shade area. So it doesn't get quite as warm, and that'll sometime extend its life. It's going to get a little more leggy, of course, because it's not getting
Hmm.
the sun that it likes.
Reaching. Yeah.
You're right, but it's going to keep it going. So we can still continue to harvest off of it longer. Another option along that same line of thinking is mulching. Mulching well around the dill plants and keeping them well watered is going to help keep the root system a little bit cooler and a little bit more moist, which is going to help extend its life as well that way.
Oh, okay.
Ultimately, it's the roots that make so many of these decisions for the plants. So if we can maintain a healthy, cool root system, that's going to help keep that plant from being too warm. So mulch will help. Another suggestion would be succession planting. Just plant more, keep planting it. Instead of people, we tend to think about
Hmm.
like, oh, here's the planting, then the transplanting, then the harvesting. But if we just like continually plant more seeds, then we can have like a robust system where we've got plants in all different parts of its life cycle. So that really
Hmm.
helps as well too. Dill is one that we do a lot of that with.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
The dill that I plant early in the spring is not going to be available for me when it's time for me to start pickling things. You know what I mean? It's already going to be kind of over with. So I need to plant
Hmm.
some in the spring and then plant some a little bit later as well. And then I'll plant it again in the fall. We're lucky here in Michigan, the way that our seasons are, especially anymore. It seems that winter, sometimes we don't even get snow until late December into January, right?
January. Yeah. Same here in
Yeah.
Ontario. Yeah.
Oh yeah, right. So we can kind of really push the garden on that end as well. So planting these crops again in the fall is going to be really, really nice for us.
Hmm.
As far as uses for dill, now of course dill pickles is a really
Yes.
common one. We've did a number of
Dressings.
things in the books. Dressings. Yeah, so one thing that we did, one of the recipes in the book is we actually toast the dill seeds. And this is just like a culinary trick I picked up from like Food Network or something.
Oh,
Anytime you're working with seeds or nuts or anything like that, if you toast them first, it kind of opens them up a little bit. It brings the essential oils, it brings the flavors out, it makes the flavor a little bit more robust. So I'll toast the dill seeds in like a dry pan to really bring out those flavors, and then I'll infuse them in vinegar. And it
oh,
makes you can use it as a salad dressing, as a marinade. Oh, it's really there's something about the flavor of like dill. It's just like so bright and punchy. It really just makes it such a nice salad dressing. It's really fun. And then of course there's a number of medicinal applications for dill as well. It can be
really?
utilized, yeah, as a face wash. It's great for digestive complaints, stomach upset. You know what I mean? So it's kind of cool to think about what we would consider a culinary plant, most certainly, and see all of the medicinal aspects that it has. So we really try to, throughout the book, highlight those types of things. So we can say, this is a plant, everybody's eating a dill pickle. You know this
Oh,
plant,
absolutely.
right? But look at all these different things that it can do for us. Just to kind of just help us again see things from a slightly different point of view, and realize that even these most common plants can do so many cool things.
Hmm. Yeah, succession, it's so funny. That's a simple thing, like succession planting, because you get so many seeds when you buy a package of, that's of course, right?
Right.
I find they do self-seed as well. So they kind of help themselves a little bit with some succession planting, but in a good way. Like, there's some
Oh
things
yeah.
that do self-seed and, it's not a good thing, but I do find that I kind of don't mind the dill, right? It's a pretty plant too. From an aesthetic point of view, it's
It's
pretty.
gorgeous with those yellow flowers. I mean, it's such a pretty plant. It really adds a nice pop of color. And that's an important thing to touch on too. You had mentioned the pollinators or, the butterflies and
Yeah.
these sorts of things, and how these herbs will bring in so many cool pollinators into our garden. But also, herbs are beautiful. Even
Hmm.
if you don't want to eat them or make medicine out of them, if you just want to grow them, I mean, the joy that comes from that alone, I mean, these are very attractive plants.
Yeah.
So we can have beautiful gardens, edible landscaping, bringing in pollinators, attracting butterflies. Some of the herbs that we grow bring in a lot of hummingbirds, and then if you choose to, you can utilize them as food and medicine, right?
Right.
So, man, herbs check every box, really.
Yeah, yeah. Because I talk about that with my clients too, that it's not always about the flowers. When you're planting a garden, sometimes it's about the textures and the foliage colors. And so many herbs, like I think of parsley and dill, I mean, their texture added in amongst other things is gorgeous, right? And
Oh, yeah.
there's not a well, yeah, I guess there are a couple perennials that kind of have that dill type, coreopsis and a few things that kind of have a little bit of that dill aesthetic. But yeah, I mean, I think, and the fact that they both attract butterflies, I mean, it's on top of that, right?
Absolutely. We grow actually a fennel. It's a bronze fennel.
Ah.
And it's a perennial herb for us here.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize that necessarily when I first planted it, or I may have put it somewhere else at the time. But you live and learn.
Yeah.
So we've got this perennial bronze fennel, and what's cool about it is it's got that really feathery foliage, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it's like this bronze reddish color. So it's very, very attractive and different, especially amongst other green plants. And then when it flowers, though, it's still got that big, beautiful yellow set of flowers. So it's this
Oh,
bronze foliage, the yellow flowers. It is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And for us, it grows pretty tall. So we grow it kind of in the back of a row. So it's tall plants
okay.
in the back, shorter plants in the front, right? So for that
Yes.
that visual appeal. And it's stunning, such an attractive plant. But of course, it's edible, it's medicinal, it's awesome. It brings in a bunch of insects. So again, it's doing everything for us. And I planted it, oh gosh, 4 or 5 years ago now. And it's just doing its thing out there, looking
Okay.
awesome. And I get to enjoy it every year. And at this point, I don't even care for it. I harvest from it, but I don't really water it or anything. So
Right. It looks after itself.
it really does.
Hmm. Now, is it fennel tea? I think that's something, is that for stomach upset?
Absolutely right, it is.
Yes.
And you can use any part of the fennel plant.
Mm.
You can use the foliage, you can use the stem if you have to, the flower, the seed is really nice. If you ever visit like an Indian restaurant, you'll often see at the cash register on the way out the door, they'll have fennel seeds for you to eat. Sometimes they're candied, sometimes they're plain. And it's for that
Okay.
reason. Even just munching on a few fennel seeds is really going to help with indigestion and digestive complaints for sure.
Excellent, excellent. And what type of so I haven't found it on this as I scroll through the thing. Other recipes that you have with fennel in the book, do you remember offhand?
Oh, offhand, I
Put
couldn't say for
No,
sure.
I know, put you on the spot.
I
My
know
apologies.
there's so many recipes in there that and we
Yes.
wrote the book. It's been a couple years ago now. But and one of the other issues that I have is that I've written so much about plants. This
Mm.
is like my 11th book now,
Mm-hmm.
and I've in the between the books written countless articles and
Mm-hmm.
blogs for
Podcasts.
you name it, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it seems like I know I've written a lot about fennel, when and where, who's to say? Um, so that's why I always recommend if you enjoy the book or if you enjoy listening to me talk about plants or whatever, track me down, find me online, and you'll sure to find a wealth of information that I'm
Yes.
trying to share through lots of different avenues.
Okay, okay. I just flipped to jewelweed. Now that was one of so my mother-in-law was a kindergarten teacher and she loved jewelweed and she loved pointing it out to the kids, her kids in her class. She would take them on walks just to go see it.
Cool.
And then
That's cool.
my kids as well. So I didn't know other than the little popping that they do and the fact that she just loved them and loved the color. I didn't know much else about it.
Jewweed is such a great plant too. So the one that we're all the most familiar with, of course, has those orange flowers.
Mm-hmm.
But there's another subspecies that you'll see occasionally that has a yellow flower. And you can use them interchangeably. I don't see the yellow nearly as often. So I just like to point it out to keep an eye out for it because it's really pretty to see. So yeah, it's a member of the impatient family. It's a touch me not, right? So the
Yeah.
seed dispersal mechanism, yeah, pops and it'll shoot those seeds. Oh man, 10, 20 feet sometimes. It's wild.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very cool. It's that's cool that she's taken the students to see it because,
Yeah.
to learn about seed dispersal, I think that's a really important thing. And this is a
Mm-hmm.
really fun example of that. Now, medicinally, of course, jewelweed is most well known for as a treatment for poison ivy. Okay.
Oh,
Oh yeah. And you'll ironically often find jewelweed growing somewhere near poison ivy. Because
really?
nature is just cool like that,
Yes. Yeah.
It's pretty wild how she comes up with that. But so what we're going to do with the jewelweed is it's actually, if you're to bust open the stems of the plant, you'll see that the stems are essentially hollow tubes. And there's this clear sap that runs through the tube. And that's really the part of the plant that we're most interested in as a poison
Okay.
ivy medicine. But that's difficult to harvest all by itself. So I'm not suggesting that.
Yeah.
What I'm saying here mostly is that the plant's going to be most beneficial fresh. If we dry the herb, you're going to lose a lot of that medicinal
Mm.
sap. So
Okay.
gathering the jewelweed fresh is how we're going to want to use it.
Mm.
And you could literally just chop it up with a little bit of water and turn it into a poultice and apply the plant material right to you topically.
Okay.
Is going to work well. But I think what I talk about in the book and the way that I always recommend people use jewelweed so that you can have it all the time, gather the fresh jewelweed, put it in your food processor, with a little bit of water, turn it into a slurry, and then put it in ice cube trays and freeze it. Kind of like how you might do if you're making like pesto out of basil, and you
Oh,
freeze it in
okay.
the ice, freeze it
Hmm.
into these little jewel weed portions of ice. And then whenever you have an issue where, you're into the poison ivy and you need it, you can get one of these ice cubes out. Just the ice cube alone is going to feel nice, right?
Yeah.
But then it's got the medicine from the jewelweed, and it's really going to help. Indigenous North Americans would actually utilize jewelweed as a preventative to not get poison ivy when they went out into the forest or the fields. They would apply it before they went out as like a
Oh,
protective coating, as a layer to stop the poison ivy from getting on their skin. I have not tried it that way, but if people have been doing it for thousands of years, I'm sure that it works just fine.
yeah.
But I have certainly used it on the other side of the poison ivy, and it works wonders. It's amazing how soothing it can be and how quickly it can help heal up, the swelling and the redness and the itching.
Oh,
It's so
wow.
effective. It's amazing. Yeah.
Oh, that is very fascinating. That is great to know. Um, and is it available? So I see it more in naturalized areas. Is it something that you can purchase seeds, jewelweed?
Well, I don't know of any
Okay.
purveyors selling seed. That's a really good question.
Mm-hmm.
You can often find it growing in the wild, though it prefers places with more moist soil. So you'll
Yes.
see it along ditch lines, by rivers, and that sort of thing. But if you were to gather the seeds, you could certainly try to grow it in your garden.
Mm-hmm.
We do that with a lot of herbs here, wild plants, native plants. that we've just kind of brought closer to home, brought into the garden, and kind of introduced them, just to make them easier for us to get to.
Right.
Every year we'd have to go down to the river to gather monarda, and it was like a family tradition. Every summer, a big hike down the river. But I was like, well, why just bring some of these plants home sometime?
Yeah.
And now it's right here, so
Yes.
now I don't
Yeah.
have to go anywhere. And they're pretty plants, they're nice, and being natives, they thrive. They don't need any help at all. You know what I mean? They're literally
Hmm.
designed to thrive in my environment. And again, pollinators and all those sorts of things are obviously prefer the native plants. So it takes care of that for me as well. And I don't have to go as far to gather them. So introducing wild plants into your landscape, native wild plants into your landscape, I think is a really, really cool option for folks that want to have some diversity, want to have some interesting plants, but maybe don't have time to commit to coddling and caring for plants that
Right.
might need more attention. Native
Hmm.
plants are such a great option, right? As a
Hmm.
landscape designer, I'm sure this is something you talk about all the time.
Hmm. Yeah, it's about the maintenance. Really it comes down to people want beautiful spaces, but they want low maintenance, right?
Yep, that's
And
it.
so it's always that battle of finding the right and I say like really the maintenance is the right plant in the right spot, right? A lot of the time. Those shady people who want their rose bushes, right? Like
Right, right. Good luck. Uh,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
When I teach folks about plants, often, I try to lean into the concept of relationship, the relationship that we have with plants,
Mm,
but also the relationship that plants have with the earth, which I think is kind of what you're saying. Understanding what a plant likes to live in, the environment that a plant prefers, then that's what we try to give to that plant. So it's going to be happy, right? So putting the
mm-hmm.
right plant in the right place. That's what that means. Like a rose in the shade. Well, that's not really what a rose likes, is it? So it's
No.
probably not going to do well for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just about matching up. What do you like? What does that plant like? And how does that fit the space that you have?
Mm-hmm. And that our space is always like the other thing I feel like the garden's not permanent because what's sunny now for the roses is sunny. But in 5 or 6 years, when that tree grows, or the neighbor's tree grows, or the neighbor plants a tree out of the blue, you know, things change, right? So I think I think people are more used to, like decorating a room. It's not like decorating a room or decorating a house, where once you put something, artwork somewhere and pretty house plant somewhere, they can stay there forever. The garden is always a bit moving, right?
Yes, absolutely. That's such a good point. The garden is alive and it's always in flux and
Hmm.
it's always changing. So that could take us back to what we were talking about at the beginning, learning to be flexible,
Mm.
and because you
Yeah.
need to, because things are going to change. So that really brings us to the point of the book is this idea of seasonal herbalism or seasonal gardening, however you want to look at that, is
Hmm.
that as the seasons change, the garden's going to change.
Yeah.
You're going to change. What you want's going to change. As the years go by, everything's going to change, right?
Hmm.
So being aware of that as we're growing our garden is an important part of having a fun time out there. It's gonna so if something doesn't work out, that's all right. It was gonna change anyways, you know.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's a good lesson to learn. I think it's so funny how we can learn all these different life lessons in the garden, right?
Yes.
We
Yeah.
can learn to be flexible, or we can learn to be patient, or whatever it is. The
Hmm.
garden will teach us so many wonderful things if
Oh
we
my
let it.
gosh.
You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do like, I'm just looking at the oxeye daisy capers. Like, what a great
Mm,
idea. But I love the idea so that even if someone did find your book at the end of the season, that it helps them with the planning of the garden in the spring, so there's so many aspects of that. So I think, where I think people would, maybe create a book on herbs in like a different format or like alphabetical or something, quite basic. But I think it's kind of ingenious to do it by season, because I think that really does change things. Like and I'm biased. Like I wrote my own book by the seasons,
right.
so I confess to being biased. But I feel like that's something that people don't think about, because you never know. Like nobody can control when they buy your books, right?
That's true. I
You
think
know.
that, you're biased because you understand the concept. That's why you wrote that book,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Being somebody who's out in the garden all the time, you've seen that and you understand that by approaching plants that way, you're going to be more successful. So
Hmm.
whenever they buy this book, because I'm going to assume, I bet you by the end, it's going to be very popular as a holiday gift for folks. You know what I mean?
Can be too. Yeah.
Right. So then even that time of year, they can learn about that season and then get ready for everything that's going to come afterwards. So wherever you
Mm-hmm.
hop into it, you're ready to get rolling with it. And it helps you see it in that big picture, right? So you can see what's coming, what's already happened, and where do you kind of fit into that storyline.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, it's true. And I just think I'm just scrolling through and I'm like, there's so much to this book. So it's coming out. So it's herbs in every season, 48 edible and medicinal herbs for the kitchen, garden, and apothecary. It's you said March 26th?
March 25th, as a matter of
5th,
fact.
5th. Okay.
March 25, 2025.
Ooh, perfect. That was good to easy to remember, right?
Right.
And how can people buy it?
People can buy this book absolutely anywhere the
Okay.
books are sold. It's on all of the platforms, all of the bookstores. It's going to be everywhere. And for folks that want to connect with me directly, of course, my website again is smallhousefarm.com.
Excellent, excellent. And I want to talk about your podcast as well, which I'm sure you're going to talk about a lot of these exciting things too on your podcast. So tell me about your podcast.
So yeah, the podcast is called Seeds and Weeds, because that's essentially what we talk about is seeds and weeds, because that's what my life is. And we're on our third full season, so it's our third year of having the show, and it has been the most fun thing that I've ever gotten involved in. And I kind of wish I would have started it sooner because
Yeah.
it's been great. So over the years, the show's kind of evolved and taken on different forms. Every season we try to do something a little differently.
Hmm.
So we've had many guests on the show, all sorts of plant people that are related to plants in some way. Some are garlic farmers, some are herbalists, some are seed savers, all these different folks to come and talk about plants and try to learn some new things to, give people some tangible skills that they could take home to apply. This season has become a little bit more free form. I've been bringing Heather on, my wife,
Okay.
who she does really almost everything here at the homestead. Anybody that knows how things go could have guessed that, right?
Hmm.
She's an integral part of everything that we do at Small House Farm. So we've been bringing her on the show. We've been kind of doing it together. It's been a lot of fun. We've really curated this season's episodes are really built around exploring the seasons. So we're kind of leaning into some of the content of the book. So it's been a lot of fun collaborating with her on these ideas to help people learn how to look at their garden seasonally, right? And to apply that information to whatever they want to grow wherever they're at. So that's been really cool. We have a Patreon community, which is like a membership community, and there's
Yes,
all these
yeah.
different tiers. Are you familiar with Patreon?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am. And how have you found it? Like I have, yeah, how have you found it?
It's been super fun. You know what I mean?
Oh,
We've done it
good.
for a couple years now, and it had a slow start to it, because it's just, I mean, it's yet another platform, and
Yes,
everybody's
yeah.
platformed out, right? But over the last couple years, it's really grown exponentially. So there's a lot of folks that are a part of it now. So there's a lot of interaction with people. There's a lot of behind the scenes content, special things that we curate just for our patrons.
Oh,
But some of the tiers, they get herbal gift boxes right from our farm. So every season, and this is before they even the book, every season they get a box sent to them full of herbal things that we're making here at the farm, whether it's salves and
oh,
tinctures and teas and all sorts of different stuff. Everyone's different. They're very unique. But they're seasonal. So we thought, well, gosh, with the seasonal book coming out, let's really kind of lean into that. So this year's Patreon gift boxes are kind of built around the theme of the book. And then so we're doing seasonal episodes of the podcast on the equinox and solstices to talk about these gift boxes and all of these cool herbal products that
oh.
reflect the bounty of the season. So it's really like a three-pronged approach to getting people to look at the world through the lens of the seasons. So I'm really excited about that. And it's kind of cool to see, the book and the patrons and the podcast all kind of coming together. It's all
Yes, it
gelled
kind of
into one
messes.
thing.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that's really nice to have that happening. And it really just kind of happened organically, which I find as an entrepreneur, all of our best business ideas have been organic and it's kind of out
Yeah.
of the blue and accidental, not
Hmm.
things that we've planned for. It seems to be our best stuff. And as a gardener, obviously, everything we do organically seems to thrive. So
Hmm.
it's just a really fun little kismet going on there that it's a very exciting time here at Small House Farm for sure.
Excellent, excellent. And how was your winter compared? Like Ontario, we've gotten a lot of snow, more than we've had in about 10 years, really. How have you made
It
out?
was decent, right? It got really cold. We did get more snow this year than we have in probably 5, 6, 7, 8 years or so,
Yeah.
but it wasn't a lot of snow. I mean, we got a couple good snowfalls. What was nice about this year is the snow, when it came, it stayed
Mm.
instead of,
Yeah.
warming up, and else it was consistent, and the snow had a chance to stick around and build up,
Mm.
which was really nice. But we're right on the other end of it already. We're already tapping maple trees. We
Ooh,
got a good
okay.
big rain just came in. So it's definitely feeling like spring here already for sure.
Oh, wow. So you're ahead. So my the podcast before you that I recorded, he was in Calgary. And so he said he's taking off his snow tires tomorrow, which I thought was like I thought they'd be behind us, but I guess he's ahead of us. So yeah, so that was kind of interesting. So he said he's raring to go for spring. So yeah, it's always fun to
Absolutely.
hear about all of our little pockets and how everybody's, gardening and preparing for spring kind of thing. So yeah. So as a gardener, I'm keen, and I've started some seeds. Every year I say I'm not going to because then I inevitably they die because I get busy. But as a landscape designer, I'm like, no, 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 I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. So it's always that. But I'm gonna try loofahs.
Oh
So
yeah.
I know I saw how we can use them as scrubbies in the kitchen, and then they just biodegrade. And so yeah, and they all are a vine. I do not have a lot of, I have a garden, like a big area in the front yard, but not in the back for vegetables and things. But it's narrow, but we put chains on the fence. So we've been able to grow like cucumbers, things that go up. So then I thought, oh, and I also love, having to cover up the fence, right?
Oh yeah.
With something green. So yeah, so I'm going to, I don't know if that's something you've grown or you've tried, but I'm kind of keen to try it. And I'm trying it, the new, so this is typical for I get so excited to try something new and try it a new way. I'm doing the snail. Have you seen the snail seed starting?
No, I have not.
Yeah, so Google that. So you basically, so some people are using plastic. I kind of think that the whole appeal to me was that we're not using plastic to grow seeds, but it's like an 8-inch strip of whether it's plastic or like bubble wrap or the foam that comes in packaging, or I did 2 layers of like a butcher paper, and you lay the soil on that, and then you roll it, so you've got to wet down, dampen the soil, and you roll it. And so then the top spiral looks like a snail shell. And then I've seen it a couple ways. I inserted, because the loofah seeds were bigger, so I inserted the loofah seeds, into the spiral and then dusted some more soil on top. Some people are putting like the tinier, on the top edge, they're sprinkling the tinier seeds and rolling it. So the 8 inches is much deeper than like any little pod that we can get, right? So when the ones that have on YouTube and stuff that they've showed what the plant looks like, so when you unroll it, it's quite an extensive root system.
Mhm.
And they what was the other thing, that like the space, the what you can grow in one roll, right, compared to like a whole tray. So for people like you who are probably starting, doing a lot of seeds, maybe not anymore, but maybe if you're,
Oh yeah.
yeah, so I again, typically, like I think I only watched 2 little videos and then I jumped right in to do it, and then I watched more videos and I'm like, yeah, I shouldn't have done it that way. But because there is some issues like the paper, I could see the paper disintegrating, like, so there is a reason to do plastic, but then I just kind of felt like the whole reason to try something without using plastic. I think some people did experiment with things like parchment paper and wax paper. So the roots were sticking to the parchment paper in
Oh
some
yeah.
cases, but the wax paper was successful, but it's not as structural. So, different people are doing different things. I'm not, I'm just doing that one thing and it's all loofah seeds. So I feel like that's worth the risk of me trying that. Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting, it's just been around the last few years, and I've noticed it come up in my feed, and I've talked to a few people about it, and I did some research and thought, okay, and I haven't done a show on it yet because I'm not really the seed starter, that's not me necessarily. I love playing with it. My son has a little click and grow, like to grow with water. You grow it with So we started we potted up basil already and oregano already that he started a few months ago, and they've just outgrown their little pods. So I've potted that up, and then now
Cool.
we're growing some more seeds through that little gizmo with the lights and stuff like that. So yeah, so it's always fun to start. Like I think that's what kind of gets me going, but it's the follow through because then the phone starts ringing and I fail.
Right. Right. Well, so I got a couple of responses to what you said here. One,
Sure.
first, I love it, and I think I'm going to try it, the snail
Good.
idea.
Yes.
But what's really cool about this is that it's something new, and you could be a gardener for years and years and years, and there's still something new to try and something fun to learn, and
Yeah.
that's cool, right? That's really nice to just be able, it's just for fun, try something new. As far as loofahs go, this is such an interesting example of understanding what a plant wants and how can you provide it. So a loofah plant is a member of the Cucurbitaceae family. So like your
Okay.
squashes and melons and that
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing, which typically have a longer and more sensitive root system. So sometimes they struggle with being transplanted
Mm-hmm.
or they're planted in cells that don't have enough space for the root system. But a loofah also in Ontario or Michigan needs to be started indoors to ensure that it's got enough time to
Yeah.
grow. So the system that you're using that's providing this space for that root, it's exactly what that loofah is going to want. So it's going to do really, really well. So you've matched up a technique with what that plant wants, and that's fun gardening.
Yes, yeah, and that was exactly what because I had already decided I wanted to grow them, and then when I saw the root system and I saw and the transplanting, I've read that the challenge also is they don't like moving them, and that is can be a challenge, right? The hardening off and the
Oh
transplanting
yeah,
them outside. And so when I saw people unroll these and to see the root systems, like you can imagine when some people are doing tomatoes, like the root system's already massive, right?
right.
And that was kind of like, okay, if I'm going to try it, I think this is the thing to try it with, you know? So yeah, I mean, if I let myself go, I would go crazy and stuff, but I'm trying to rein myself in because
Right.
it is a lot of work and it takes up I don't necessarily, it just consumes my dining room type of thing, right?
Well, I'm going to keep an eye out. If you do a episode or a YouTube
Mm,
video or something about it or anything,
okay.
I'm going to keep an eye out for it. But if you don't, email me anyways and let me know how it goes because I'm really curious about it.
Yeah, I definitely will. I definitely will. And search for it I just found a video where somebody else um looked up, like I think she took clips from 14 other people and how they did it, like all the different, so it was like a
Mm.
cool, so she kind of looked at for uh and my friend Margaret, so several of them were from Canadians also, and how they did it different ways. So that was really a cool video where she in a quick time she showed all the different people, so that was really a neat thing, which of course I watched after I started mine, but
Of course, of course. Right.
but I just, don't you agree? Like the thought of being able to start seeds without having to introduce plastic,
Yeah, that's
right?
awesome. Absolutely. Plastic is like the scourge of the gardening world, it seems like.
It,
So
it
any
really
any
is.
chance to move away from that's really
Yeah.
cool.
I mean, as far as seed pot, like those trays and things, at least we're reusing them, right? It's not like they're
Right.
disposable. So we are reusing them. And often, the pots from leftover plants and stuff I save to reuse. So there is some of that in that standpoint. But I just thought, for somebody who's just starting out and doesn't want to invest in all those things and has the paper, and I think that foam that we do get in some packaging that you never know what to do with, right? I think if I had saved some of that, that might be, I could see where that would be a benefit, but because it would also be reusable.
Right.
The bubble wrap, I don't know. I just feel like then we're introducing like microplastics, I think, into the soil, right? So there's that fine line. You want something that's going to work, but if it's going to eventually affect the soil, eh, you
Not
know,
so good. I couldn't keep
yeah.
bubble wrap around here anyways. My kids will pop it as soon as they find it. So
Yeah. Yes. So tell me what else is going on around your farm, getting ready for the season.
Well, like I mentioned, we're doing maple syrup, so that's been
Ah,
the chore for sure. So, we got all the trees tapped already, so now it's just kind of monitoring the buckets and dumping them out and
okay.
that sort of thing, till we get to the magic number and we can start boiling. We got seeds started. We're already starting a number of seeds.
Okay.
some of, our longer season plants that we need to start, or some of the
Mm-hmm.
seeds that are a little slower to germinate. So we might consider some herbs would be like rosemary. It takes a very long time to germinate a
Okay.
rosemary. It's a very slow growing plant. So starting
Yes.
those in advance, well in advance is important. Um, some seeds that need to be stratified. It's stratification season, really.
Mm.
So if we think about some of our herbs, let me think what's going on in there. There's echinacea, maybe marshmallow, licorice, those types of herbs. They need the seeds to be stratified, that exposure to the cold temperatures, so they can
Okay.
break their dormancy, right? So that's happening right now, in preparation of eventually planting those seeds. So it feels like spring here.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, we just got that first rain. I heard sandhill cranes yesterday for the first time. Well, that's an
Oh,
ultimate clue. That's the clue for sure.
okay.
So spring is definitely on its way. But with all of these like pre-spring activities, like the maple syrup or the
Mm-hmm.
stratification, really is one of the first things that happens. Those are the signals for me that it might as well be spring already. So I've already
Ah.
considered it. It's spring now.
Mm-hmm.
Winter's over, now it's spring, and it's kind of the calm before the storm in a way.
Yes.
We organizing and planning. We have sketched out our garden and then scrapped it and resketched it. And you're going through that phase, getting it
Mm-hmm.
all figured out. And then it's going to be gangbusters in no time. As soon as, within a couple of weeks, it's going to be go time, and
Yes.
it doesn't stop. You know how it is. Once the
Yes.
season goes, it
Yes.
doesn't stop. But I love that. I love that. But I think I love this moment of anticipation just as much, if not more, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that scheming and dreaming, and you could feel the energy and everything just like
Mm-hmm.
kind of vibrating, where everything's just about to come back to life. And it's, I would say, one of my favorite times of year. I really think
Yeah.
so. I like
Oh.
harvest season. I enjoy the fruits of the labor, I guess. But
Mm-hmm.
there's something really special about this moment that we're in right now, for sure.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I know we were talking about saving seeds, so I definitely want to have you back in like what do you think, August time frame, maybe if not sooner, but to
Yeah.
talk about saving seeds, because I think that's something people need to learn about, that they don't have to keep buying seeds, right?
That's right. Saving seeds is one of the best things that we can do. I mean, not only because the economics of it, so we don't have to buy those seeds, but the
Mm-hmm.
seeds that you save from your garden will grow better for you than any seed you'll ever buy.
Mm.
You know what I mean? They're practically designed to thrive in your environment, right? So yeah, I would love to come back. August is a good time because that's when seed saving season's approaching. So it's a really good time
Yes.
to get those tools and knowledge gathered together so we can be prepared to start saving all those seeds.
Excellent,
Yeah.
excellent. So, well, it's been so great chatting with you. I feel like we could just keep going. And I'm excited for your book, March 25th, 25. It's going to be out. Your podcast, Seeds and Weeds, or Weeds and
Yep.
Seeds, Seeds and Weeds,
Seeds and weeds.
Seeds and Weeds, and available on, I'm assuming, all the platforms
Yeah,
too.
it's on all the
Yes.
platforms. It ends up
Okay.
on our YouTube channel as well.
Okay.
And I think it's seedsandweedspodcast.com is the website for it.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
yeah,
That's great. So yeah, so I will have all of that in the show notes for my clients and or for my listeners, and social media as well. We'll tag you, and so yeah, so it's been so great to chat with you and to learn more about Small House Farm. And I'm excited to have you back about saving seeds, and I'm excited to see how your book does. And I will let you know how it goes with loofahs. So my loofahs,
fantastic.
and let me know what you think of trying a seed snail too. So and I bet you that's something the kids might like too.
They would love it. That's right up their alley. So I'll get you updated on that. You update me on
Okay.
the other things, and we'll connect in the future to schedule another time to get together.
Wonderful, wonderful. So yeah, so thank you everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, and thank you for joining me down the garden path.